you. Hi, everyone. It's so good to just really good to see all of you guys. Thank you for spending your Friday morning with us. And wow, Carmen is always such a treat. And I'm just so excited to be with her again and to just be able to learn from her. I've been learning from her for about the past 10 years, actually. And I think thinking back, Carmen, I think I met you in 2010, around that time at TLC in Michigan. So Carmen Richardson is founder and director of Prairie Institute of Expressive Arts Therapy in Calgary, Alberta. And she offers training, consultation, and supervision to professionals and community agencies. She's a registered clinical social worker, a registered art therapist, and a registered expressive arts therapist. And she's completed many trainings in body-oriented therapies, including integrative body psychotherapy, level 1 in sensory motor psychotherapy for treatment of trauma and interrelationship focusing. And she's also trained in EMDR and ART, which is accelerated resolution therapy. She is an advanced certified trauma practitioner and certified agency trainer with the National Institute for Trauma and Loss in Children, where she teaches trauma-informed expressive arts therapy for a variety of therapeutic agencies in the US, including Jessica's house. So we're so excited to have you, Carmen. And I just have to say about Carmen, I can really say that you have been most impactful in my life, and I'll never forget the class I took from you in Michigan. And just the way you use poetry and movement and art and all of that to help us really have an experience of expression. And we use all of what we learned from you today in Jessica's house. And it's just so exciting to have you. So thanks for being here, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Erin. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm just going to move my screen, and just so I know, I would just like to just say hello to each of you individually. And I am just taking you all in here for just a moment, and welcome, welcome. So good. The bud. The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within, of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely, till it flowers again, from within, of self-blessing. Galway Kinnell. The very first invitation I offer is for us to each take a moment to offer ourselves a blessing. So whatever it is, so just in your own heart, take a moment. May I be happy, may I be strong, may I be safe, whatever it is. So I'll just leave just a moment for us to just take a moment to think about what is a blessing that you might offer yourself in this moment. And now I invite you to offer this blessing to the space and to each other here and now. And so just imagine offering this to each other. And if you would like to offer that blessing, if you would like to just pop that in the chat, just, you know, may we be of service. So we go from may I to may we. And if you, yeah, and you don't have to, but if you would like to just offer that blessing also through your word in the chat. May we have strength. May we be of service. May we be present. May we be filled with peace and joy. May we experience peace. May we be strong and loved. May we find understanding. May we have a great time learning and growing in this class. May we come together to be of service to all of those in need. May we be active. May we be hope for each other. May we be alive. The blessing of life. May we be content in our future. Thank you so much for those. So I am going to start just with a screen share here, and we'll just start with my PowerPoint here. Okay. And this is in a handout that Brad sent out. So it's not lengthy. This is going to be rather a quick highlight, actually, of some of the things that I spoke to in the previous training back in January, I believe it was. And so I wanted to highlight just a couple of things. So there are 3 objectives this morning, that we will be invited to an experience, an art invitation, and we are going to have an opportunity to practice being witness. And the third thing is to experience creating an art response. And what I will do now is just go through what those mean. What does this mean? Of being witness and so on. And so I'm going to highlight this. And if for some of you, if this is the first time you have heard this, really allow this information just to sink in and give yourself permission, lots of permission to play with this and practice this morning with each other. And that's really the most important thing, that we feel we have permission. We don't have to be artists. We don't have to, but we can play and we can have fun with it as well. So to highlight, and when I think about the space of Jessica's house and how incredibly beautiful this space is, and your new space, and the important work that you do, and the important work that each of you are being called to do in this space. And it is not just the beauty of the physical space, but the energy that each of you bring, the gift of presence and kindness and warmth. This we can't even put into words sometimes, but that is really key when I think about creating space, and really sacred space for people who are experiencing grief. And so the first slide here that I'll speak to is really entering space, that opening and closing of rituals to invite comfort, safety, continuity, that kind of predictability. And just I'll highlight some of the ideas, and just the lighting of candles, the blowing them out at the end. Anything that we can do to really center, breathe, bring people to feel themselves in the space, becoming present. Perhaps a wish, an intention, or prayer basket that we might invite people to be part of. So any kind of ritual that marks this space is different, this time that we're entering is different. We might invite some movement or stretching. We may open with poems, stories, songs, or lyrics. So that idea of entering, and I would also say entering and exiting space. So this is just an invitation to think of some of those kinds of things that we can do that can create that sense of sacred space. And as we are journeying with others, that we think about offering this experience of witness to one another. And how is it that we are called to be in relationship with one another? And in this space in which you are coming forward to be volunteering at Jessica's house, that, and when we are in the space of the art making space, which is what my focus is this morning, and that we can, when we witness, so I'm speaking now about when we've created art and you're with a group or a person or an individual who is creating art, how do we be with someone now that they have created their art, or how do we maybe invite them to go further with sharing about their art? So the first piece is when there is art making being done, how do we do art alongside? Do we just stay present to be able to serve and do the cleaning and so on of the art materials? And each person, each group is different, but there are many ways. And I think it really first is really being intentional about what is it that this group in particular is needing me to be? How do they need me to be with this group? And is it by doing art alongside? Is it by just being in service of the materials and so on? So there, I think it's really an individual decision about what is needed. And we learn, and we can ask if we're working with a small group, we might ask how they need us to be with them. But the idea of slowing down enough to really be present to what this space is asking. And I find, and I will just say this even right now as we prepare to do some art making here shortly, that we can offer permission statements, and I would offer these to each of us here, that we don't need to be artists or musicians or dancers to do any art making or movement. There's really no right or wrong way of doing the art. I will offer an invitation, a frame, and then you work within that frame and with the materials, the specific materials that you have, and follow your own knowing and your own thread of what you need to do with this next art invitation. And we might even just say, we're going to just explore materials together. So this is this idea of journeying alongside others in the art space. And there are many more other permission statements. Those are just a few. But most important, that we have and offer that ear of the heart listening, that listening to each other to completion, that we hear beyond words, that we are paying attention to what is before, who is before us, what's happening in their body, in their movement, in their tone, in the energy of the space. And that we really show up with presence, with some eagerness and love. And our body communicates all of this. It communicates, I am with you. And I think we can all do that in our own unique way, that we show up with others. How do I show? I am here, I am present, I am with you. Keep going. So we will do art making, a small piece this morning, and then we're going to have an opportunity to do an art response to what we are witnessing in our partners. We're going to move into some partner work as well. And so I will go through this now, but we'll come back to it in a little bit. But I wanted to highlight, what is an art response? And it is just it is when we are listening, and if we are just in dialogue, as we always are in relationship with another, and we offer our words of comfort, our words of care, our words of witness that I'm with you. And an art response is simply using another way of responding to the I am with you, I am hearing you, and using an art form to do that. And this morning, we're just going to play with simple materials of just an art response that might be, it could be just a small visual piece on a paper with markers and just a symbol. And it really is anything that comes from a place of witnessing, of compassionate witnessing. And so an art response is really that gift of presence that says, I see you. And so as we're listening, what is it that stirred in me? How am I moved by what I have just witnessed in the person I am with? And in doing an art response, it just gives that possibilities for an increase in a sense of connection and attuning to the other person. And how do we craft one? So it is any art form. Each one is unique, just simple acts of acknowledgement. And sometimes it's just a gesture that it just says, and a bow and a hand to heart. Just small movements is also, it can be a art response. And we are mindful about, why am I offering? I speak about that more in the way of, if I'm in a group or I'm with another, when would I use one? And we might use it for many reasons, for many, in many different circumstances. So for example, when do we create? When we are moved by what we're witnessing. It might be as a symbol of hope, an offering. It might be a show of empathy. It might be a closing ritual where we all offer an art response to what we've just experienced in group or in a training even, however we want to invite using an art response. So simple. And we might invite others to create, like in group members might create an art response. So if someone is sharing their piece of art, we might slow it down and have the rest of the group do an art response to that person who has just shared, and each person have that experience. It is a gift to receive an art response. And I would just share a few. These are from a group that I did a number of years ago, but I love to show these ones. With adolescent girls who had experienced child sexual abuse. And in this group, they had an opportunity to share their story through art. And when one young person would share her story, the rest of the group would just witness and listen. Then they would go to the art table where all the materials, without saying anything, and create some kind of response in art of how they were moved by the story of the other group member. And so some of the art response were these. And this one, she called it her warrior shield, and she made the shield and offered it to the other gal. And because the group was called Warrior Girl Spirit. And so she created that in response to her story. And another one, the one person who shared her story was really about this theme of finding light together. And so she created this art response. So again, very simple art responses to I see you, I hear you, I am with you. So moving on to actually creating. So the invitation this morning, and as you all, I am imagining, have your materials around you somehow and somewhere there. So this is the invitation that we are going to create story sticks. And so whatever, it's so interesting, because usually if we're doing a training, we can see all the materials and we can, I can imagine what you might have there, or if you have any, well, you can still ask questions. I can't see the chat at the moment, but you can, if Brad, if there are questions, but I'll show a couple more slides and I'll stop the screen share there. But I would like to just say, I'm going to share another poem. And we are going to create story sticks that honor the both grief and sorrow, as well as hope, joy, or kindness, whatever the words or themes that speak to you. And I am going to just go out of that screen share, and I'll come back to that last slide. So the idea is that we begin with acknowledging. We acknowledge grief and sorrow. And so our story stick may hold all of that. It may hold both the grief and the sorrow and the joy and hope. And you were invited to have a quote, I believe, as well, a quote that might speak to both of those themes. And you are welcome to find a way to print or write on your stick or attach. Even if you have paper, you might attach it with some yarn, whatever. And there, again, there's really no right or wrong. So I'm not going to say a whole lot more about that invitation. And you know, as I was imagining doing this, I thought, oh, we could enter into small group discussions about grief. What is grief? And sharing our quotes. So just know, I say this more to, as you go out to and do the volunteering and are creating these spaces, that those are pieces that would be really nice introductions as well, like just ways to sort of ease into the art making, is some sharing about those themes. What is sorrow? What is grief to you? What is hope? What is joy in relation and in connection? And how do we hold both? And when? And there are so many stories within stories that we start to experience and want. I believe so deeply in the need to share our stories. And creating a story stick can start to help with that experience. And even though this morning we won't have time to really do, I think that you will be able to continue to work on your story stick, is what I'm getting at, even after this morning, because I think there's, as we sink into it, I don't know, I just find with any art making, I like to have a lot of space, even though we don't have it maybe at the time here, but that you might continue to work with it outside of our time together. And so we will have about half an hour to work on our story sticks. And then we're going to move into pairs. And then I will come, I'll check in with you, but I will say more about that, about what we're going to do in pairs when we get there. And so I would like to just share a poem, and you can start actually, you know, taking your materials and playing with your materials right now as I share. I'm going to read this poem, and then if there are any questions, I'll have a look at that. But I would like to offer you this poem by Naomi Shihab Nye. It's called Kindness. And before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. And what you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go. So you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness, how you ride and ride, thinking this bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. And before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. And you must see how this could be you. How he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. And before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. And you must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. And then there is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. So I will go over the next invitation. So I know this is really sort of faster paced than you might be doing this. So just to know that, and the next invitation, and Brad, I know it was put in the chat there just a little bit up above where we are there. Breakout room instructions. So we're going to have 20 minutes in breakout rooms for the next 20 minutes. And here's the invitation. Partner A will just share about their story stick, and lots of permission about what you share, what you don't share. And again, because we're doing this rather in a very structured way, just so that we can move through it for training purposes. So I would like to come back to the larger group and hear what your experience was and any questions, something you might have bumped into in the process. A shares their part, and they're only going to have 5 minutes. So we have to be really mindful. What is it that's most important that I want my partner to hear about my experience and about my story stick? So A shares, B listens. And as B listens, this is that opportunity about witnessing and just those tell me more kind of prompts, and just being with, it's just being with the other person. And so then as B listens, B is invited to create an art response to A's experience, what they've just witnessed. And so if you have other things there, other materials, it can be anything. It could be something from what you were just using, some materials, and you create very simply an art response. So if I'm listening to Erin's story and I am struck by something or moved by it, I might then take my paper and I might just create a very simple symbol and then share that back with Erin. I really want you to have that opportunity to use art to respond versus just, oh, that was so moving, right? I mean, and again, we can communicate in that way, but the invitation is to have that experience of using art. Or it might be, there are like words as I'm listening, it's like, oh, this really stands out to me, these 5 words that you shared. And then I take those 5 words and I create a small verse or a small poem and offer that back. So the idea is to stay in the art and create an art response. The idea is that we do it rather just more spontaneous. This isn't a well thought out, there's not expectations that it's more than that. It's just simply an art response. So that is the invitation. And then, so B does the art response, shares that back with A, and then they switch roles. And so we'll have 20 minutes to do that process. So yeah. Just hold up, because just hold up what you have created, just for all to see, and let's just bring it into our Zoom space, whatever you have. And let's just really hold it and just take a time. We're going to take a minute to really see each other's, what they've created. So just take it in. Oh,
somebody drew it. Ginger. Oh, I love her. So she drew it. Elsie.
Nice. You, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, just
oh, I forgot. There's other people too.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep
Scroll
holding.
to the next page.
Oh my goodness.
I want to keep seeing the others I see.
Yeah. Thank you for holding those up. And I'm just would like, I was so glad I went into the room, some of the rooms, just to get a little feel for what was happening in those spaces. Oh my goodness, it's just so moving, and I'm so grateful. So thank you for sharing what I did here, and the witnessing back the actual creating the art response. Just, are there any comments? I guess I would just like to hear what that experience was like. Any questions or comments?
Carmen, I would like to say I was paired with Shayla, and when we first entered the room, we both kind of just put it out there. We're more introverted, so we're like, okay, we're just gonna hold space with each other and just kind of show our art. And at the end, once we shared, we learned we had so much like in common with our emotions and feelings that we had gone through our adversity. And I feel like we could have talked for a really long time once we kind of settled that. So it was really good. Thank you, Shayla, for sharing your story with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Marie.
I was with Glennis and Victoria, and it was funny because I thought we're just going to do an art thing to show how to help other people, but it was like a little lesson for me today, my little therapy. So I'm going to keep this little thing. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. And isn't it true though, like that, yeah, we go in thinking this is for someone else, but truly we cannot, like, if we do this from that place of really openness, because I think it is important, if we are going to offer these invitations, that we do them. It's one thing to just talk about doing a story stick, but oh my goodness, when you move into the creating, and then it's one thing also to create the story stick, but then to start sharing and be held by another in your story, profound, has the ability to be profound. So thank you for that, Marie. Anyone else? Any surprise? Elizabeth.
Sorry. I was paired with a sweet gal named Hope, and she is much younger than I am. And what was so sweet is that we actually created similar items of art that were in memory of our grandparents. We had both had a really special connection with them. And it was for us both of our first loss, and one that really affected us. And so it was really neat to see. We even used common things like buttons, and that not everyone would use, that we were able to share in common with each other. And it was really sweet that even though we're generations apart, we have such commonality, and it was beautiful to have that together. And thank you, Hope, for sharing. And she wrote me the most beautiful poem in response that was lovely. So thank you. It was really neat.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say anything else, Hope, there.
No, yeah, I agree. It was really cool. Just, yeah, like she said, realizing these common themes that we've kind of both experienced, and we're able to share, our art and responding. I really do appreciate it, and I love doing this exercise. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you both.
Can I say something?
Please, Sheila, yes.
Sorry. I just wanted to note that I think it's kind of really helpful, at least for me, to have kind of like a time limit and have to create without thinking, because I tend to be a perfectionist and like overdo things. And so there was no time for that. All I could do was just do it. And I think it turned out, way more beautifully and so much more authentic because of that.
That's such a great point, Sheila. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's one of the things that I talk about in almost every training, is about the restriction of time. because we are always working within that restriction, and it can be very frustrating. Like, oh, you know, on the one hand, it's like, oh, you could really sink into these things. But when we have that shorter time, it's just like you said, the expectation can get shifted to just, oh, be more spontaneous, because our perfectionist parts of us might want to take over otherwise. But it's, yeah, so it's great to hear that, even though like we're always working with, yes, it'd be nice to have more time, and we work with what is. We're always working within that restriction. But thank you for pointing that. Okay. Anything else? I just want to share again, the bud. The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower, for everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and tell it in words and in touch it is lovely, till it flowers again from within of self-blessing. And may we all go in service of bringing our hearts and into the world and into the places that you will go. And thank you so much for being willing to do the process and diving in our restriction of time. And it is always such a joy, Erin. Thank you so much for having me. And I just, big hug.
Carmen, thank you. Thank you for being with us in this and for teaching us. And to all of you, thank you for being a witness to each other's sacred stories. This is the gift that we have for the families we serve at Jessica's house. And it's such a privilege. It's such an honor to witness the pain and also the hope that they have. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing this work with them. It heals them and it heals us. And so thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for spending this day with us. And we can't wait to see you all in person. We have so many exciting volunteer opportunities and also trainings coming up. And I just can't wait to see you all. So thanks for being here. And